Hello everyone, welcome back to Amy's Bookshelf. We are going to talk about the books I read in the first half of November. So I'm so sorry about the lighting if it looks dark. It's nighttime and I am doing best I can. I have to film this today though, so you can see it soon, as in like tomorrow. But I am filming this a little bit later and I'm going to talk about the books I read in the first 16 days of the month, as one of the books I was reading really actively for those first 15 days and I finished it on the 16th. So we're not going to really worry about that, but let's get into it. So the first book I read, and I'm so sorry for my shelves, I realized they're in a disarray. So sorry. Anyways, the first book I read is The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. I read this one for my In Real Life book club and my Agatha Christie book club, which is online on Facebook. And this was a reread for me and I really enjoyed it. I guess this one is a bit more different when you know the twist, when you know the murderer, but I did enjoy it and I did notice the clues that were planted throughout. I did feel like there were enough sufficient clues, and as I was talking to my coworker who goes to my real life book club, she was on the right path all along. So it is possible, I guess, to guess. However, I didn't the first time I read this book and I enjoyed it on the reread. So this one follows a doctor. It's his journey, and through this book you see it through his narrative as he is in this village and his next door neighbor happens to be Poirot, and his neighbor, who is also another neighbor, is Roger Ackroyd, and he dies. And you get to see Poirot investigate, also have the doctor's narration of that entire journey, and I did enjoy it, like I said. So I think I'm giving this one 5 stars. I think I give it 5 stars. It is really well crafted. If not, it's a 4-star, and I'll put the label up here. I can't remember my exact rating, but 5 stars. So the next book that I read was the Tuesday Night Club. So it's actually a short story. I only read this one and I gave it 5 stars. I really enjoyed this one short story. It's a Miss Marple. This is the first short story in this collection, and this collection is all about short stories that happen while they are all taking time to tell each other mysteries, essentially. And Miss Marple, I'm sure, solves all of them with great expertise. So it's really was a fun short story, and I really enjoyed seeing Miss Marple in her little quiet action at this little dinner table. And I think this one takes place shortly after the beginning of the series, so this one probably is book 2, I guess, in the row. And I believe this one also goes by the name of 13 Problems, or yeah, something like that, for the Miss Marple collection, but I have it in this edition. I also read my Believe-a-thon book, which was perfect for also Historathon. So I also counted The Murder of Roger Ackroyd for Historathon for adaptation, which I still have not watched the adaptation of, which I should, I don't know, rectify. But anyways, that is a Historathon book. I counted it. Anyways, this one is also a Historathon book, and it's my Believe-a-thon book, which is Ripped Away. This one's by Shirley, Reva, Vernick, and I was actually reached out to by the author for this, and it is in exchange for an honest review, so it's not something I was, being paid for or anything, but I really loved this book. I loved this one. It was so fast and so engaging. This was actually the first book I finished this month. I picked it up and I just flew through it. It is very short, but it follows 2 children as they are, and this is like maybe upper middle grade to young YA, and this one follows 2 12-year-olds. I think they were 12, maybe 11, as they are basically ripped out of their current timeline and brought back to the Victorian era, and they are put into Jack the Ripper, England. They are put into the lives of 2 current children, and they have to try and solve their current predicament by actually fixing what their fortune teller who brought them there had them do. It is very interesting. It talks a lot about the racism that happened during the Victorian era towards the Jewish people, and it was very, very fascinating. I really loved how it covered so many topics, but it's also handled so delicately for a middle grade audience. And yet it handled things like racism, it handled things like how the Victorian people lived, the poverty level, and how things like disabilities were handled, because there is blind representation in this, as the girl does go back and comes back as a blind child, or she's living in the body of a blind child, and it is something that she has never had before, but she's having to learn how to adapt. And something else about this book is that as the story progresses, their lives are going through this, and they are definitely having to live as everyday Victorian era people. So I highly recommend this one, and this one comes out February 8th in 2022, so you should check this one out. Pre-order if you would like, purchase it. I highly recommend this one. I really enjoyed this one, and I didn't expect to love it that much. I mean, I don't really love time travel, but this one, it wasn't so much about the time travel, it was more about learning about a new perspective of things, and I think it really did that well. And I really loved the history elements. It really felt authentic, and I cannot express more about it. So also for Historathon, I read A Test of Wills by Charles Todd. This one is in between the wars, I think it is. I'm pretty sure it's between the wars. And this one is about Ian Rutledge as he starts his journey at Scotland Yard. This one follows him as he has come back from World War I, and he is shell-shocked, but no one knows about it. And he is on his first case. This one had a really good build-up. It was really interesting. It had a lot of great mystery elements, and I really did enjoy the development of the mystery and the storyline. So in this one, he's trying to find out who killed a colonel. And as he's trying to do that, there are many people at play in this small little village. And I thought it was really interesting, and I really was invested. However, the ending really let me down. I did not enjoy the big reveal, and I felt like it was a bit too unpredictable, if you know what I mean. If you understand what I'm trying to say, it was just not cohesive for me. But I did give it a 3 out of 5 stars. I thought that it was a really great build-up. However, the ending let it down a star. So yeah, this one is a great series, and we are starting to read them in order with a book club on Kate Howe's Zoom discussions. Is really going to be fun. So if you want to check that out, you can always contact Kate Howe about how to do that. So we are going to move on to book 2 next month, and I'm excited to continue reading Ian the Rutledge series. The last book that I read for Historathon was Rain by Dana McNeely. This one is a biblical fiction about Elijah and the time of no rain in the Old Testament. So I really enjoyed reading this one, and I put this for the prompt of last to read because I feel like I'm probably the last one, or one of the few last people to read it for the book club, even though that probably might not be true now that I looked at how many people have rated it on Goodreads. But anyways, I really did enjoy this. I gave it 5 stars. I loved how it talked about so many perspectives, and it followed Elijah's perspective. It talked about how the idol worship happened and how the different people would have responded. It had so many different elements to this. It had so much great character development, and it talked about racism. It talked about prejudice in the Bible. It talked about all of these different elements of people who were in that time. It talked about Jezebel and Ahab and how different things were happening in their court system. Yeah. It had a lot of different things, and I really enjoyed it. It did follow mainly a Ben, who is a priest. He was meant to be a high priest in one of the temples who was not for Yahweh, and he is running away to try and find what is going on. He's trying to find the truth, and that's kind of where I want to leave it. It was really interesting, and it just follows that era of history. It was very good, and I highly recommend it. It is not really well known, I guess, but so good and so addictive. I could not put it down. Totally a 5 stars from me. I should also mention that I tried to read Orphan Train Christmas, which was my booktube spin, and I DNF'd it at 30% because I did not like the writing style, and I felt like there were way too many characters, and I definitely was not feeling this book. I was forcing myself to read it, and then I discovered I owned like 6 other books by this author, so I have unhauled them off of my Kindle, And I've decided that Rachel Wesson is just not for me, and that's okay. But I'm glad that I at least tried to get my booktube spin in there for Historathon, and I'm glad to say that I at least discovered that an author is not for me. I've also read several nonfiction books, which aren't always on my physical TBR, so that's okay. I've read stuff that are, so don't worry. But also for NetGalley November. So this one is for that. So this is called Tracing Your Scottish Family History on the Internet. And this one is by Chris Paton. So this one I gave 4 stars to because it is very much what it says it is. It is a bunch of resources and how you can research your family history online, especially if you're Scottish. It has Scottish websites. It has how you can go into the church researches, and it actually had things like if your family has a history, like if your ancestor was a miner, use this website. If your ancestor was this kind of job in a few situations, use this website. And it was really interesting in that regard. So I would recommend trying this book if you are at all Scottish and trying to find your family history. But other than that, it would not be of use to you. However, it did what it said it was supposed to do, which is giving you many resources if you are looking up your Scottish family tree. I have 2 other books for Believeathon, which happen to just work out. One of which is Kristy and the Snobs. This one is originally by Anne M. Martin, and it has been adapted by Chou. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm so sorry. This one is book 7, I believe, in the Babysitters Club graphic novel series, and I gave this one 4 stars. I really enjoy this series. It's nice to revisit my childhood reading series, but also in a new way. This one also covered things like, I don't know, grief. It does have a grief element in it, I will warn you. I don't want to say too much more because it does spoil. It also talks about, you know, moving and new friends, but also how to handle bullies. That's an element in there. And I love how these books not only talk about, you know, the little things, but they also handle big topics. So really enjoyed this one as well. I also had Veterans Day for Grandpa, which is by Dee Smith. I actually read this one for work, and it is a nonfiction nonfiction picture book, but I'm putting it in there for Believeathon as well, because it is, and it's also nonfiction. So there we go. This one is a very, very good book for Veterans Day or Remembrance Day here in Canada. That's mainly why I got it and bought it for work. But yeah, it's talking about why veterans are so important and what they've done for our country. And I thought it was a really well done book. So I highly recommend it if you're looking for something like that for next year, for your children, or for something to communicate that message without doing too many traumas and damage too young. Another nonfiction I have was Robin Hood by David Baldwin. I did read this one, and I unfortunately gave it 3 stars. I felt like this one was just not what I had been desperate for. I thought this one would tell me this is who Robin Hood is. And it mostly just gave me a lot of push and pull, and this is what a lot of evidence is about this part of this and this part of that part. And I was like, I wanted facts. Who do you think Robin Hood is? And I didn't get that from this. However, it did have solid information. It did have a lot about this time period, and I did enjoy most of it. It just wasn't all that I was wanting and expecting. And since I've had this book for probably 4 years now, maybe 5 years, I didn't get what I was hoping for. So I was a little let down. So yeah, 3 stars. I'm not going to be rereading it, so I'm going to unhaul it, but it wasn't a bad book by any means. Another nonfiction I read was The Art of War. This one was very good. I decided to listen to it after I was looking at all my audiobooks, and I knew I couldn't get to the histories this month, so that is still on my want to read list. However, I decided to go with this one as it is very old and very short. But it was really interesting to learn about how you can work with others who are your enemies. I don't obviously fight wars. I'm not a soldier, but I really took some lessons to heart about how to work with people who are different from me or who might be fighting with me in some ways, whether that be antagonizing or other ways. I really did enjoy that, and I also liked how it was a lot about you cannot be defeated if it's about you. They can defeat you if you let them. So I was really enjoying all the lessons, and I gave it 5 stars. I really did appreciate all of the value in it, and I thought it had a lot of lessons that were really take-home worthy. It was actually a 4-star, but it was still a really great one, and I am very excited that I was able to listen to it and finally, you know, mark that off of my eventual read list. The last nonfiction book that I read was Behind Enemy Lines. This one's by Marthe Cohn. This one I was so happy I finally read. This one was also on my nonfiction November TBR where I did a reaction video like the Robin Hood book, but this one was a total 5-star. I had no idea about half the information in this book. When I went to go and listen to Marthe Cohn, she told some information, but then she's also said during the talk, she's like, I'm not going to tell you everything, you have to read my book. And oh goodness, she was right. This had so much information, and this woman was incredible. She still is, but did so many incredible things. This book starts with her traipsing across the very first chapter. I'm not spoiling anything. The very first chapter is where she traipses across a line and is held up at gunpoint by soldiers. And it is so intense. Then you go back to her childhood with her family. You meet her parents, her siblings, and how she grew up as a Jew in France, but also speaking fluent German in the home. And so that's kind of the setup. And then from there, you learn about how they survived in the war, what things go on, and from there, you discover what happened to get her to the point where you were start the book at. I don't want to say anymore. It is so good. I cannot express to you how much she did incredible things. She risked her life in so many ways, and I'm just in awe of all the things that were done in this book, like the things that she did and like saw and held her character and her composure through. But even then, after the war, she did so many incredible things as well. I couldn't even believe it. After the European part, she did so many things. So incredible, and highly recommend. If you have not read this book, if you've never heard of this book, you should read this book. And I can't believe I took so long to read this one. So yeah, this is a new favorite of mine. I also read Arsenic and Adobo by Mia P. Manansala. This one I really enjoyed. I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was really fun. The food descriptions were so mouth-watering. This one is about Leela, who is at home helping her Tita Rosie, and with her kitchen and all these things, when she serves food to Derek, who is a food critic in town, who writes awful reviews, and then he drops dead in front of her. And suddenly there's this huge investigation, and it is a cozy mystery based around food. But the cozy mystery part was just like so good. I will say this though, I figured it out, not based on stuff that was in the book. Some of the stuff I did figure out, but mostly because I figured out what would happen, what would be a great setup for book 2. That's what I figured it out on. But I really did enjoy this one. I thought it was really clever, and I loved how the twists and turns happened, and I loved the different characters. I loved how they all had their own unique voices. I listened to this on audio while driving, and I thought it was so fantastic. So easy to keep my attention while driving. I need something to help me like divert focus. I need 2 things, and while driving, this was a great thing to listen to that didn't take too much focus. But at the same time, I couldn't wait to finish it off and see who done it and if I was right, and I was. So I was very happy with myself. But at the same time, it didn't get a full 5 stars. I just thought it was really good, and I highly recommend this. I can't wait for book 2 to come out and see what happens next with the Tita Rosa mysteries. I also read The Heart Principle by Helen Hoang. Yes, I know I'm talking about a lot of books here. I have read a lot of books. I guess I'm over my downer part of the month, or October. Maybe I just needed to read nonfiction. Maybe that's what it was. Anyways, I read The Heart Principle. I read this with Berna. We had talked about buddy reading this, and then I was like, hey, my hold came in. Do you want to read it now? So we read it together. And this one I actually loved the best out of the series. It was just so wholesome, and I felt so much for Anna throughout this whole book. This book follows Anna, who went viral after making a video while playing her violin. well, not making a video, but she was playing her violin and a video of her went viral. And then also about Cohn, who was a character in the first 2 books of Helen Hoang's little series. And I loved him in the first 2 books. So I just really loved how they both had their personal struggles to go through, but at the same time, their journeys were so honest and authentic. And I really felt the integrity and the true voice of these characters throughout the story. I really loved how these characters really felt so raw to me at times. But at the same time, I also was really angry at certain other characters. And I don't want to say too much more because I feel like this is a really great book. It's not super romancy. It has a lot more emotional things to go through, and it does deal with a loved one who is in basic needs, and Anna has to become a caregiver in some ways. And I don't want to say too much more than that, but that is something in case you need a trigger warning for that. But it is a lot about that. So it has a lot more, you know, family elements, family relationships to talk about. And I really love this one, but I did not read every word in it because I don't read steamy, sexy. And so I give this one a 4-star, but it is my favorite of the series. So yeah, really love this book really enjoyed this book. Loved every part that I read, and I love this series for what it is and what it stands for. And I want to read more from Helen Hoang whenever she puts out more books. The last book I have to talk about is Redbreast by Jo Nesbo. I finished this one on the 16th, and I know this is a little bit over the halfway of the month, but I was reading it every day of the month so far to that point, so I'm gonna count it. This one is another buddy read. It was with Berna and Nikki from Red Dot Reads, so I'll link her channel below as well as Berna. And this one was really good. I enjoyed this one so thoroughly. This one's a 5-star from me. It was about 2 timelines at the beginning, which threw me because I did not know what to expect going in. But it's about World War II era storyline following these Norwegian soldiers. And then you also are following a 2000 timeline with more political elements and Harry Hole. And it was just so intriguing, and every time the book turned, I was like, well, now that we've solved that bit, where are we gonna go next? Or I don't really know where we're going. And I was totally happy the whole time. I kind of stepped on the right track a bit, but not really. And I love how I'm just wrong. And I love that. I love that. Especially with all of our discussion every day. We should have been somewhere right, but no. And then I was kind of right towards the end, and I was happy with myself. But yes, thoroughly enjoyable, 5 stars. I am really loving Jo Nesbo's writing style, and even through an interpreter, I can tell that he's really ingenious with the way he puts together chapters and sentences, and it's really clever. So yeah, really good. That's not proper. It was great. So overall, I think that was 14 books and 16 days, including 1 short story, which I didn't expect that number to be so high. But I was really happy with all the books I was reading, except for my one DNF, which was Orphan Train Christmas, which I'm happily DNF'd before I got too far in. And it's just that the author's not for me, so that's okay. But yeah, I don't have that much of a stack to show you. I only have these 5 books because I can't find a Test of Wills. However, 6 books in person that I read physically, and the rest were ebooks or audiobooks, and that was okay. Like I said last month, I'm happy reading a lot more electronically, and these ones, they were great as this form. So please let me know down in the comments below what you have read this month, if you've read any of the ones I've read. What have you been reading for Nonfiction November? Believe-a-thon, any of those things. I'd love to chat down below in the comments. But also, what are you planning to do for the rest of November? Because I know that I have a lot of more nonfiction I want to read, but I'm not sure what else I plan on reading. So it's going to be a lot more fun and up in the air. But please like and subscribe if you are new here and you enjoyed this video, and hit that notification bell if you haven't and you would like to. And you can see the next video that popped up from me, and I can give you a hint. This is going to be in it. Anyways, I will see you next time. Bye for now.